everybody. It's This Week in Google. Leo's out and I'm filling in. We've got Jeff Jarvis, as usual, and a special guest, Ed Zitron. This week on the show, we talk about AI and the new groundbreaking legislation the EU passed. We also talk about TikTok. Will it end up being forced to shut down or be sold? We also talk a lot about Kara Swisher and this great New York Times story about how automakers are sharing consumers' driving behavior with insurance companies. All that and more coming up on the show. Stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is Twig. This Week in Google, episode 759, recorded Wednesday, March 13th, 2024. The posters will rise.
This episode of This Week in Google brought to you by Melissa, the data quality experts. Melissa has helped over 10,000 businesses worldwide harness accurate data with their industry-leading solutions. Processing, get this, over 1 trillion address, email, name, and phone records. 1 trillion. G2 in its 2024 grid report has once again recognized Melissa as leaders in data quality and address verification. And Melissa knows money's tight, so they offer free trials, sample codes, flexible pricing with an ROI guarantee. And of course, you get unlimited technical support. All customers everywhere in the world. Now, when it comes to data, Melissa treats your data like the solid gold that it is. They protect it. In fact, they are FedRAMP authorized as an address data resource. That means you're getting the highest level of security for your customer data. It also means governmental agencies can use Melissa with confidence. It's also GDPR and CCPA compliant. It meets SOC 2 and HIPAA HITRUST standards for information security management. They got it all covered. Improve your e-commerce operations with Melissa. Now, as an SRE partner, Melissa's cloud-based tools standardize, validate, verify, and enhance data on which top businesses rely, ensuring address data is seamlessly location optimized. They're constantly getting better. Oh, and don't forget to try the free Melissa Lookups apps. They're on Google Play or the iOS App Store. No sign up is required. Get started today at Melissa. 1,000 records cleaned for free at melissa.com/twit. That's MELISSA, melissa.com/twit.
It's time for Twig, This Week in Google. As you may have guessed, I am not Leo Laporte. In fact, I'm Paris Martineau. Leo has abandoned us this week, fleeing the country to the shores of Cabo. In his stead, I have seized the means of podcast production, and God only knows what will follow. Laughing over there is, you know who's not in Cabo this week? Jeff Jarvis.
I'm never anyplace fun, and I for one, welcome my new master.
Thank you. He's the director of the Tao Knight Center for Entrepreneurial Journalism at the School of Journalism at the City University of New York. It feels so powerful to be able to cue that up.
Ed is right away. He just said, Christ.
I'm going nowhere.
Yeah, I was about to say, Ed, speaking of people who are just right immediately on the pulse of the show, we've got Ed Zitron here, CEO of Easy PR and host of the Better Offline podcast. Ed, welcome.
What's up? Thank you for having me. I will be Leo Laporte this episode.
That's really important. We all at some point are going to need to take turns being Leo, and you're never going to know which one of us is going to suddenly become an AI accelerationist, and that's really important.
Yeah, that's definitely what I'll be doing.
Yeah, when I messaged Ed to see if he wanted to come on the show, I was like, we need a contrarian perspective to balance out the amount of shows we've had that are like AI should have access to everything.
Yeah, no. Also, even if it did, what's it going to do? It doesn't do anything. Doesn't do it.
It's a great point.
Hell, The Information just had a story about that. About how they're trying to tamp down the enthusiasm because it isn't doing enough.
Yeah, earlier this week, my colleagues at The Information reported that Amazon and Google are quietly trying to tamp down expectations around generative AI, and they are basically saying that the hype about the technology has gotten ahead of what it can actually do for customers at a reasonable price. Surprise, surprise.
That's the sound of a balloon being blown up, ready to pop.
I know somewhere out there on the beaches of Cabo, Leo is shaking his hand going, but my, cool chat GPT thing for Emacs. Well, Leo, you're not here this
Paris,
week.
I'd love to know the background of the story because they're trying to let air out of the balloon, right, before it gets poppy. Was that the journalists saying, how do I ask this question? Are the companies putting out an active strategy of lowering expectations, or did the journalists kind of just hear this among investors and among others that cool it a little bit?
Oh,
So
I actually just read this, so I'm very excited to talk about this. So a lot of it appeared to come from direct sales calls and conversations with internal people, from what I can understand, saying that they're having to do this and they're having to make people step back. And the weirdest one was this KPMG bought access to Microsoft Copilot for like 40-something thousand people. But when asked why, they were like, we don't really know why we're using it, but if our customers ask any questions, we should really know, which is just complete nonsense. Like, this isn't the balloon. I don't even think the balloon is being deflated. I think these companies are trying to quietly deflate it while keep it publicly interesting.
That's really what I'm saying. Yeah, because you look at it, I think there's three ways, Ed, right, that they're trying to deflate it. One is, it can't do everything we said it could do. Two is, the impact won't be as profound as we said it would be. And three is, the revenue won't be as earth-shattering as we hinted that it would be. Right?
Yeah. And I think the thing that people don't realize is, and the media's kind of not helped with this exactly either, is even if it gets, the biggest problem isn't just that it's not doing enough. It's that even when it gets profitable, when it helps people get profitable, I should say, what if it's only doing like 2 to 4% more profit? Well, how about that? Because generative AI right now is exceedingly unprofitable. Very, very unprofitable for the companies to run.
It's so costly.
And all of it is flowing back to Google and Microsoft. OpenAI and Anthropic are basically in the pocket. They both agreed to their own versions of exclusive contracts with them. So, by the way, this is all a system where just Microsoft invested, $10 billion to basically buy $10 billion of revenue. Same deal with Google and Anthropic for about $3 billion. But the other thing in there was they mentioned this Klarna story, that Klarna saw $40 million of saving in there. That's not what Klarna said. Klarna said there was a specific word I'm not going to bring up for you because this is really important and very strange term. Not seen this one used. It was, let's see, profit improvement, an estimated drive of $40 million USD in profit improvement to Klarna in 2024. So, by the way, that does not say profit and it does not say savings. It says estimated in 2024, which is the year we're currently in. So
and what does profit improvement mean? I've never heard that.
It means that it could theoretically save money somewhere that could contribute to the top line profit at some point in some form to a company called Klarna that's already not particularly profitable because their entire business model is based on people getting free money and then making affiliate dollars. So
and then they lay off 700 people and blamed that on AI rather than on management, eh?
And blamed it on AI management or perhaps not giving everyone 0% interest loans all the time.
Right.
With no real credit checks. It's the same problem that a firm is facing. It's just, it all feels like we're being conned on some level.
Well, this is interesting because if you look back at the 2000 crash, right, it was about using VC money to buy audience that wasn't really legitimately there.
Yes.
So now they're using VC money to buy what?
Well, that's the interesting thing. They're using VC money to find a new way to make money from their customers. It's the same deal. Actually, taking a step back, who is they in this question? Because if it's Microsoft and Google, what they're doing is investing money in AI companies that then become dependent on them for their models to run. So all Microsoft and Google are doing is buying revenue. They just most of the $10 billion that was invested in OpenAI was cloud credits. Anthropic agreed just before they took $3 billion from Google to be exclusively using Google's cloud and AI services. So in their case, it's just they've created a new money stream. It's kind of akin to like the cloud boom in the 2010s.
So it's an old model. It's equity for revenue.
Yes, but in the startups case, I don't know. I don't know what these people. There are some very niche like AI things that are kind of cool, but you see it in Snap. You see it in these big like Facebook's talking about generative AI. What's it going to do for Facebook? My bigger theory is that Google wants to replace Google search with generative AI anyway, but that's a whole other podcast. Yeah, no. I wrote a whole thing about it, Jeff. You got to read it.
I thought it was interesting in the article my colleagues wrote. They mentioned that at AWS, they recently gave their salespeople kind of a reality check on the tech. They had an analyst come in during an annual kickoff event a couple weeks ago and say that the industry is at the peak of the hype cycle. And that he anticipates the hype could veer into, quote, a trough of disillusionment in the coming years as customers realize generative AI's limitations. Bit of a downer tone for a company presentation about selling AI.
I had this vision that at the headquarters of the information, there's a big dial and the BS-ometer. How
no,
BS
but that's
right
a really
now,
good idea for our interior design.
It is, isn't it? And so how far on the BS-ometer now? I mean, because I'd imagine, especially the information you two Ed, but the larger organization of all the wealth and resources the information has, that at some point you just all have conversations saying, is this real? Is this going anywhere?
I don't know if I want to comment on that one. I got some thoughts about some of the managerial decisions, but I'd be very curious what the information has to say if Facebook moves into generative AI. I'd be looking forward to Jessica Lesson's coverage around that. Yeah,
I mean, I can't speak to her or any other individual employee's thoughts on it, but for me, I think I've been quite clear on the podcast. I think it's quite a lot of hype. It reminds me of the, whole metaverse craze or the crypto and NFT crazes. Mm-hmm. It is just the hype cycle of the moment. And I haven't yet really seen any evidence that this is a revolutionary technology in the way it is being described. And I assume that this is just kind of the first moment where we are starting to see the eventual fall of this cycle.
Oh, Leo's running down the beach right now to get back on the show and scream.
I was going to say, Leo is pulling up a big phone and trying to dial in to tell us Leo, Ed, for context, has been radicalized ever since he went on a walk with an unnamed AI accelerationist who convinced him that in 5 to 10 years, AI will be everything.
Did he take anything with that person? Because it sounds like an ayahuasca. No, I'm joking.
I mean, that's what I'm always saying. Is it could be.
The big difference, I think, between this and like metaverse and crypto is there is a product here, but the problem is that everyone's kind of in on the idea of AI being big in the same way that, I don't know if you remember Paris, like early 2010s, you had the big software as a service push and everyone loved it. It was a new way that we could make money off of software that you could sell into the enterprise. There was actually the thing that tech never really had consistently with the enterprise was a structured way to sell, a contract-based thing that had an obvious bill of sale. You could sell an SLA on it. It was great. AI feels more like the cloud boom, which was good until you realize the same level of hype from the metaverse did stink on it, which is AI is going to automate everything. Okay, how? Well, it will. Okay, but how will it do that? Integrations and API, awesome, great. But what does that mean? I do not know. You paid $35 million to me. I work for McKinsey. I was just here to tell you that AI is good. But the thing is with the Valley right now is everyone likes this idea because it's a new thing. It's a new thing everyone can do. It's a new thing that everyone can integrate. It can theoretize. You can think through, how will AI apply to a business I work at? Here's the thing I don't like. I can automate that. That makes sense. That's a logical thing to think of. However, when you really sit and think about the actual technical side, can it? How much of the thing you're trying to automate can be messed up, because that's a big part. Messing up things is a big part of generative AI. And then even if you work out a way this can directly help you and integrate it, it is expensive. It is unprofitable for the service provider,
unreliable.
By the way. It's unreliable. But even if you find the boundaries, and there was a hilarious Wall Street Journal article a few weeks ago where they were saying, yeah, Amazon and Google, OpenAI and Google are trying to sell their generative AI solutions, and they keep running into the problem of hallucinations. And then they said, what could we do to fix this? I think Dario was like, yeah, we could just tell the AI not to answer if it isn't confident, which then led to another quote from someone saying, yeah, but at some point the AI will just go, I don't know what, I can't help you, man. I'm sorry. I don't trust myself. It's just so strange because there was this insane amount of money. No, Mark Andreessen should be laughed at publicly for the money that went into like character AI, but not as hard as the money that went into Flow with Adam Newman, I should add. But so much money's gone into these systems, but where's the actual thing? Where's the thingy? Where's the thingy that I use now? Where is the essential thingy now? I don't see the thingy.
You don't think Chat GPT is the creme de la creme?
I don't know what it's for. I would love someone to tell me how this would. I am lazy. I don't want to do stuff. If the computer can do the thing for me, I'd be so happy. But
have you ever used Chat GPT for anything useful?
I've tried. I've
used it for exactly one thing. I forget what I was trying to look up. Something maybe related to niche healthcare industry terms for a story I was working on, and I was having a really hard time summarizing it like a human person.
Right.
And eventually asked ChatGPT a number of different questions, and it kind of helped me.
That's
the only thing I've used it for.
The second time today, my best use, and I've said this on the show before, is to summarize strategy. I just put it all in there, and it gives me 2 nice paragraphs. Ed, I think you're pointing to something here that part of the presumption in that information story is that so many people see AI as a method to efficiency. That's the mistake, because that presumes that this general machine can do things we do, right? Somewhere in the rundown, I put up Zach Seward, who's the head of AI in the newsroom at the Times now. He did a really good presentation at South by Southwest, which I haven't been to for years and had no FOMO for all these years. But I would have liked to have heard that, but Zach put it up. And it's all about finding anomalies in data. That's a journalistic way to look at it. But, analysis of data and finding anomalies and patterns, it seems to work pretty well because you're giving it to yourself for judgment. But replacing jobs? No. Efficiency? So you can write more PowerPoints? That's not efficient. That's spamming the world. I don't know where the efficiency comes from. I agree.
And I would love it to like my PR firm job. There's a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of boring documents, a lot of anodyne copy. You'd think this would be what these things were for. But every time I ask it to do stuff, it gives me possibly the most half-assed work I've ever seen. Just like you have all of, like you're throwing several zoos, 100 cats and a few trees in there just for this query. And you can't even give me like a filled in spreadsheet. I can't upload a spreadsheet and have you tell me what's in it. I thought this was the very basic thing this could do. It's not quite as infuriating as crypto where there was nothing.
Yes.
Absolutely nothing. Same with the metaverse. And I grew up writing about MMORPGs, NFTs as well. This thing does something, but at the same time, despite everyone losing their nut over Sam Altman conning the non-profit board into reinstating him with several other Bebop and Rocksteady style cronies, everyone lost their proverbial over that. But this company is yet to prove itself. I saw a journalist say, it's so beautiful, by the way, on the night that Sam Altman was brought back. Felt sick to my stomach.
Oh my God.
It's disgusting. It's disgraceful to be like that, especially for like a goblin like Sam Altman. A nasty little man. I'm sorry, Sam. Ugh. Nasty. Also, by the way, Redditors, they made nothing off the IPO, nothing off the Reddit IPO. Sam Altman could have made a couple $100 million. It's nice to see the good guys win, huh?
Of course. I think part of the issue is that when people are talking about AI, they describe it, people much like our gone host, Leo, describe it as a thinking, almost feeling machine. They humanize it in a way and project intelligence onto it in a way that is just completely
just not right.
untethered from reality.
But Paris, I use this phrase today. I'm writing a new premise or beginning for my book, The Gutenberg Parenthesis, on sale now in paperback this fall. So I had to write about that. And I called it the literate, more in our reaction to it than the reality, but we see it as the literate machine. Like, we can speak to it and it can speak to us. And that's what's so shocking to humans and media, is just that it uses our language. Not always well, Lord knows not accurately. But
it doesn't know anything. It's not intelligent.
I agree. Absolutely.
It doesn't know what it's saying.
Yeah, I'm agreeing. Just to be clear, I'm agreeing with you. Like, it doesn't know anything. It's why everyone's like, oh, well, the future versions of Sora video generator will look so much better. No, they won't. They're not going to look better. Why? Because of the hallucinations, which are a feature, not a product. These things don't know if you can't tell it that a monkey has 2 arms, 2 legs. See, I'm about as useful as ChatGPT.
You can't tell Ed that either.
Can't say yet. I'm just regular stupid. I'm meant to be able to learn things. But
it's not making any claims about being intelligent here. I think
no one has that mistake. But it's going to keep making these errors, because even if it makes it, and this is the thing that I tell people with the AI generated video especially, we don't realize how perfect the world around us is, and that the world around us is, we interpret it through basic semiotics, science of signs. And we know what a monkey looks like. If a monkey had 3 horns, we'd be like, what the hell? That's a strange looking monkey. But we'd know it was a monkey based on some of the features. But when you get down to basic things like how a human being walks, how something we know moves, and you try and do that and you make even little mistakes, people know that. People aren't stupid. And I actually think that that's a big thing that generative AI people aren't realizing. People are not dumb. They're going to see it's not doing anything. And this is
also one of the qualms I have with the claim that Sora is going to replace filmmaking and generative AI is going to completely, wipe out the filmmaking industry as we know it. Filmmaking to be a director, there's a very high bar. Directors of major movies are particular when it comes to the shots that they have. You're not going to be able to, describe a very specific shot as well as get the sort of performance from your AI actors with the same ease you would just standing in the room with 2 humans that you have hired for a specific role. It's
but I
going
think
to be more
TikTok, imagine TikTok with Sora, right? There's stuff that in lay hands can do more than it could. I think that all of this it's not a business, but I think if it had all been put out there as a creativity machine, and that's all it does is make stuff up, and you can make stuff up with it, and it's going to be good or bad, and you can have fun with it. That's cool. I got no problem with that. I think there's a lot there, but it's this efficiency machine that's going to replace search and replace people at jobs and be smarter than us is such BS. I got to be on the Dan Le Batard podcast this morning.
French for the bastard.
Does that mean you've done now 3 podcasts today?
In one day, yes,
Jeff,
I am.
wow.
I did 4 on last Monday. I've been doing the promo tour for this damn show. God. Anyway, keep going, sir.
So I use language there that I'm not allowed to use here. But they started asking about AI, and I said it's all the big swinging Richard of the AI boys.
I quite like that.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think the reason that I think that Google will do search with this is not because it's a good idea, but because I think that Google has made a big mess. They made a big stinky. They've turned the web into a big hole with their allowance of SEO. And the thing is, putting aside AI spam, by the way, Google is at fault because they are the ones that have catered to the freaks of the SEO industry. And the people in charge of the media are the ones that have been trying to dance to Google's song. I think Google will do a generative bot that turns them into a form of ISP. I think they want Google search to be much more controlled. I think they want it to chew up and regurgitate the internet. To be clear, I think this is a horrible product, but I think that Google and Sundar Pichai in particular have just become so scummy and so actively abusive of the people on the internet that I think that this is their eventual endgame. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's efficient. I don't think it's even right most of the time. But guess what? Google need more money. Google must show growth. The raw economy must survive. We must always have more growth in tech, even if it's unsustainable, even if it's horrifying for human beings and indeed the human capital working at these companies.
Well, that's depressing.
Yeah. I mean, world is a vampire.
I mean, it's part of what you get when you have to have companies that are always showing quarterly growth.
That's right.
Speaking of AI, today European lawmakers approved what's being called the world's most comprehensive legislation yet on AI, setting out sweeping rules for developers of AI systems and new restrictions on how the tech can be used. It's called the AI Act, and the rules are set to take effect gradually over the next several years and apply to all AI products sold in the EU market, regardless of where they were developed. Some of the notable parts of this include there are prohibitions in the legislation, including bans on the use of emotional recognition AI in schools and the workplace, and on untargeted scraping of images for facial recognition databases. The new rules will eventually require providers of general purpose AI models like ChatGPT to have up-to-date technical documentation and publish a summary of the content they use to train the model. And makers of the most powerful AI models, which is what the EU has deemed to have kind of systemic risk, will be required to put those models through state-of-the-art safety evaluations and notify regulators of any serious incidents that occur with the models, and implement, I guess, mitigations for potential risks or cybersecurity protection. What do you guys think about this?
Ed, you first.
I think the EU is the only force that can stop the tech industry. I don't know. I haven't read the fundament of the bill, but I do think regulation is necessary here. And I think in particular, they need to start saying how these models are trained and what they're trained on, because it's pretty hard to make these things forget. You can't really do it. You just have to revert the training data. And I think that I'm surprised Sam Altman hasn't created the anti-Butlerian jihad against Europe for this, because this is anything that makes OpenAI responsible for their training data is fatal for that company. There's a reason that Mark Andreessen was freaking out about the idea of AI companies having to abide by copyright. Same reason that OpenAI is so freaked out about it and why they're paying people, because if there's anything that sets precedent here, they're screwed. You can't unring the bell of training. They will have to probably start again to make it. They can't really prove that it's not there anymore. And if you look at Sora, a great deal of it looks very, very similar to a lot of Shutterstock stuff too. So I think that, I don't know if they have a relationship with them, but I am pretty sure that all of these models are based on some form of plagiarism. The EU rocks. I love that they're doing stuff like this. It's better than the nothing we're getting over here.
So I'll disagree.
I was going to say, I'm finally that I've finally summoned someone on this podcast who agrees with me.
I think you want to go first. You go first.
No,
you go.
I'll hear your rebuttal.
Okay.
Jeff.
All right. I think the legislation is better than it could have been. They were talking about outlawing open source, which would be disastrous. It would be regulatory capture. They were talking about. I think that the reason OpenAI is not screaming is because it is regulatory capture. The big companies with the big money will be able to deal with this legislation and regulation, and newcomers won't. And so that's why you always hear Microsoft just saying, regulate us, yes, please. And that's what Zuckerberg says too, and that's what OpenAI says as well. So I think there's issues there. I also think that Europe constantly says, we're ahead on regulation, but nothing else. And then they come back around and they whine, why don't we have our innovative companies? Because they don't invest, they don't do it, and they regulate reflexively. The problem, I think, in the end, I'm fine. We have some regulation. The regulation is not bad. But I also put it in the right.
He says begrudgingly.
Yeah, it could have been a lot worse. That's my view. But I don't think it's going to do much. And I think in its later stages, it's a very flimsy negligee on a. I'll stop that metaphor.
The boobs of AI.
Jeff immediately retreats. It's his third podcast of the day, and it's gotten too much for him.
So I put up this thing from AI Snake Oil, the Arvind Narayanan and Sayash Kapoor. which makes the argument that I've made on the show before, that guardrails are impossible at the model level. They say that AI safety is not a characteristic of models. It's a general interest machine. It's like saying, Gutenberg, you're responsible for everything coming off the press. It's like expecting Microsoft to tell us as we're using Word, no, you can't type that. I'm programmed to not let you type that. You can't do that. Obviously absurd. And so putting the responsibility level in the model isn't going to be effective. And so it's a veil that makes people think we're doing something and we're going to protect ourselves from this dangerous technology. The problem I have with it is that, no, we should be honest about it, that you cannot protect yourself from this technology and the bad things that people will try to do with it. Now deal with that.
The thing I think that is kind of interesting about this legislation is it's kind of tiered. Originally, I believe it was set to exclusively focus on developers of what they call like high-risk AI systems, which is kind of a catch-all term that I guess I'm going to break this down from a really interesting website I think the EU put together called artificialintelligenceact.eu that has kind of what looks like it's almost an AI-generated summary of the act itself, but I'm guessing it probably isn't. But in their like prohibited AI systems list, so you've got a couple tiers. One is like prohibited AI systems where it's like AI can't be used for these sort of things, which is like compiling like facial recognition databases, inferring emotions, social scoring, stuff like that. But then most of what this act is targeting is developers of so-called like high-risk AI systems, which is like it if they profile individuals or include like automated processing of personal data to assess various aspects of a person's life, like work performance, economic situation, or health, or if it is somehow, I guess, like related to like EU like law, if it is like the government is using something related to the system, which I think is kind of an important distinction. The vast majority of these regulations are focused on these type of AI like developers and companies, which is a very specific subset. For like the general AI systems, like, you know, like a ChatGPT or something, that is the regulations being imposed here are of a much like lower standard. It's like they've got to provide technical documentation and whatnot. And
which is good
for free,
which is fine.
Because I think Leo also often talks about like how this is going to squash free, like open AI initiatives. For like free and open license like AI models, they only need to comply with copyright restrictions and publish the training data summary, which I think is fair.
Also, I think at this point, you should realize, Leo, you're not here. So, of course, my perfect favorite argument where the person cannot respond. But a very basic thing here is if you're worried about little AI models, you should already have realized they've already failed. They're screwed. These massive deals between OpenAI and Anthropic and the major cloud providers, and the fact that they can afford to buy these massive data sets, $60 million with Reddit, for example, with Google, the war's already been lost. The little models can never train at the scale. They never will be able to. And
but do they need to?
Well, kind of.
That's the stochastic parents argument is that was all Big Swinging Richard, that you didn't need to have the biggest models. That's all
Sam Altman who's saying that. Sam Altman is the one pushing back now saying, oh, yeah, you don't need big models anymore. You need small models.
Jan LeCun says the same thing.
He is just... One is just an extremely annoying character, and I disagree. Nevertheless, putting that aside, otherwise I'll just spend the whole time getting mad at them. It's just...
All right, wait a second. Wait. Who's the most irritating person in AI? I want to hear each of you answer that.
Oh, what's his name? The one that said there would be a Bitcoin virus.
Could be any number of people. I guess my answer is Elon Musk, even though I'd argue that he's not an AI. But
cheat.
His, it's an easy answer.
Choice.
It's the easiest answer, and just because Grok, sometimes I'll just be alone at home should be thinking about normal things related to my life, and I'll just remember the existence of Grok AI.
Does it exist? Here's a question. Does Grok really exist?
Yes.
Yeah?
Grok exists on X. patreon.com/ratemynudes.biz, the Elon Musk website. And it's great because every time you see a screenshot of it burning someone, you're like trying to roast them, it does the same thing. It says, "Oh boy, where do I start?" It's so bad.
That's how you know it's a sick burn, Ed.
That's how you know it's written by Elon Musk.
Yeah,
he's just like this is extremely this is a terrible insult. I'm going to say, "Oh boy, where do I start here?" Yeah. So I'm trying to find this guy because he was a less wrong guy, and he pops up. He's like an AI face. God damn it! I'm going to be thinking about this for a while. I think Jan's a pretty good choice, but I think Sam Altman. I truly think Sam Altman is the most annoying because he gets away with it. He also does not sound eloquent. I don't know if you heard Sam Altman speak, but for the smartest guy in the bloody room, he sounds pretty dull. I don't even mean like dull in a just not a good public speaker thing. He just doesn't, I don't know, he kind of seems like ChatGPT, just kind of mediocre. He's like, yeah, we'll get big in like 4 years. And everyone in CNBC.com immediately just copy-paste the transcript. Publish, and it's just it frustrates me. Sam Altman frustrates me a great deal. He's fallen. That man has failed upwards like 7 times.
I mean, it is still mind-boggling to me that he was ousted from the board, ends up getting reinstated, and accumulates even more power.
Mm-hmm. We still don't know why. We still do not know why.
No, we don't.
Nope.
We have. It could be to do with his sister. We'll never know. Could be to do with any number of things. Or hey, maybe it was the fact that he wanted to turn the non-profit wing of OpenAI into a profitable thing. And he put Larry Summers on the board. So no worries there.
Yeah, this week...
laughing at us.
Bloomberg reported that...
Eliza Yudkowsky.
Eliza Yudkowsky.
Eliezer Yudkowsky.
He's
that's 2 votes.
Annoying.
Because not only that, he is the worst of the doomers. Yes. In the Journal of Moral Panic, otherwise known as Time Magazine, that's where he writes his screeds.
Moral Panic, drink.
I think Gutenberg deserves a beer and Moral Panic wine. Is my view here, or vodka.
I got Diet Coke.
So Yudkowsky is the one who's out there screaming that paperclips will kill us all.
Yeah,
and he's the worst of the doomers. He is the worst of the doomers. He's in the New Yorker story with 99.9% that it's going to destroy us and has to stop us. And he's just...
He would love that. He's a big fan of Rocco's Basilisk, also known as the Weenies version of Pascal's Wager. God,
what is Rocco's Basilisk?
This is beyond our podcast score here. I think this.
Rocco's Basilisk is this thing that we need to start building or working on or pleasing a theoretical machine god before it comes into existence. Otherwise, it will punish us if we do not do so. It is such a dumbass theory. It's exactly the kind of like dumb guy's intellectual exercise. Like, what if a computer was scary? What if the computer was mad at me? Oh no, I'm so smart for thinking of this. It's a recursive intellectual exercise.
I do think it's quite bold to reinvent religion in the year of our Lord 2024.
Except worse.
Yeah,
it's the same thing.
Gemini. Rocco's Basilisk is controversial for a few reasons. It relies on a lot of speculation about the nature of future AI and its motivations, as if it has any motivations. The idea of AI punishing people in the past for not helping create it is seen by many as illogical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But it's exactly
they're doing time travel too? I didn't know that.
There's time travel in there now?
I'm into it for time travel. That's fun.
What a big waste of time.
Yeah, the time travel into the T.
Oh, God.
Oh, that's really smart. I think we need to add more letters into TestGrill. I think we should make it more complicated, ideally.
Yeah.
Your challenge while Leo's gone is to get TestGrill in the title of the show today. That'll really be
he would fly back from Cabo to stop us.
It's in the TestGrills.
Yeah.
So wait. So Yudkowsky, I didn't know this. He's also the co-founder of Less Wrong.
Yes.
What is that?
Great place if you want to find a bunch of libertarian guys barely covering up their racism. And talking about subjects with less articulation than a Redditor or a Stack Overflow member, and a little less anger than the average Hacker News user. It's a very useless place to go if you want to meet a bunch of people that you'll never want to meet in real life.
Wow. Yeah. On the Wikipedia page for Less Wrong, the first subhead under history is Rocco's Basilisk.
Yeah.
The biggest thing they've created is a version of Pascal's Wager that sucks. What's great is you go on there now. Let's read some of these titles. Meta Honesty, firming up Honesty's edge cases. Oh my God, go outside.
These people have never touched grass in their lives.
Touch grass.
There's another one that says, no one in my org puts money into their pension. Notes from the prompt factory. There is way too much serendipity. Okay.
Jesus. And here's the problem. These people are getting huge amounts of money. They're using money on the major college campuses to do clubs and fellowships and classes around this crap. They're getting the ear of legislators, and they have the ear of media. And they're idiots.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Honestly, it's like the Jay Rosen scam, but for AI. It's kind of cool. Just
watch
like
it.
you.
Watch it. Go in.
Wow. Yeah, I was going to say, you're talking to a. You gotta.
Jarvis
he's
is
Jay
cool,
Rosen adjacent here.
NYU, CUNY,
Jay Rosen is at least that's the thing. Jay Rosen is at least an academic. At least he has academic cred. At least he has spoken to reporters and knows them. These people are just like, yeah, thought about it really hard. Wouldn't it be scary if the computer did this? And everyone goes, what? God damn.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Whoa. What if the computer was smart? But if you look at the wider media, they're buying a not much more sophisticated story from Sam Altman. Sam Altman's like, yeah, it's going to automate everything. It could be super smart and automate all the stuff. He's about that vague.
Well, I love these headlines. I want to less wrong. They're just wonderful. I want T-shirts for every one of them. How could I have thought that faster? The parable of the fallen pendulum. What could a policy banning AGI look like? There isn't any AGI. It's not going to happen. Give it up. Notes from a prompt factory. Oh, my Lord. Yeah, the serendipity one is a beautiful one. Yeah.
There's one about the COVID-19 pandemic, of course, because these guys love to think about stuff and get really close to saying something racist. They
Highlights from Lex Friedman's interview of Jan LeCun.
Yeah. Wow.
What a
you say
how
Lex
to have
Friedman's
polygenetically screened
Lex
children.
Friedman is so funny, though. Lex Friedman is
he's
one
awful.
of my...
He's so awful because he buys all the BS. He buys
all the BS.
Remind me who Lex Friedman is.
So imagine, if you will, a very pallid, boring man that nevertheless has become one of the most successful tech podcasters. I will depose him. He is.
Oh, that's true. I have seen you tweeting about Better Offline rising in the ranks. You've got to take over Alexa's spot.
I will take him on by doing a good job. Unlike him, he does these like 2-3 hour long interviews of people. He got Elon Musk, he got Jeff Bezos, and he gets like Bajali, of course. Classic.
I was going to say, how many hosts of the All In podcast do you think you could take in a fight at?
How many members or posts?
How many hosts? Or I guess
how many hosts? Couldn't take Shamath. Shamath's ripped. Probably take Jason and David at the same time.
Maybe you could beat them in a cook-off.
Oh, absolutely. Those guys make some like depressing looking food. But Lex Friedman, what he does is he does these 3 hour long interviews that are the most, he talks like this the entire time. He is also just one of the least articulate men to ever walk this earth. I want to read.
Why do you like him?
Like, I don't know why people like him. I don't know why people like him at all. But let me read you this question, the transcript of a question he asked Jeff Bezos. And this is the exact way he said it. You went to Princeton with aspirations to be a theoretical physicist. What attracted you to physics, and why did you change your mind and not become why you're not Jeff Bezos, the famous theoretical physicist?
Oh no.
Brother man. And to be clear, he is reading this question off a piece of paper. Slowly.
He's a member of the slow talkers of America.
Maybe
he slow talks while making hesitations.
Maybe his popularity comes from the culture of people listening to podcasts on like 1.5 speed.
I think it's that. And yeah, you could probably listen to this at like 8 speed and get.
He thinks being slow makes you sound smarter.
I think he's speaking slowly because that's how fast the information comes out.
Let me read you the description of his YouTube channel. Lex Friedman, conversations about science, technology, history, philosophy, and the nature of intelligence, consciousness, love, and power. All right, dude.
He had
Speaking of which,
on there.
We're going to have to go to an ad break. So get your last Lex Friedman thoughts in. Any final thoughts, guys?
You could play 30 seconds of him interviewing Tucker Carlson.
No, I don't think we can do that, actually.
Right, but just to tie this up, he does these very long-winded things where he gives platforms to incredulous freaks like Bajali, like Tucker. He lets Elon Musk go, oh, yes, there's very, very big problems with the immigration and the wokes. And he's so dull, but he's basically a right-wing guy. He's basically just another right-wing tech guy. And that is a problem. The two of the biggest podcasts are center-right, right-wing. That sucks. That's bad. Anyway, enjoy the ad break.
Enjoy the ads.
This episode of This Week in Google brought to you by Rocket Money. By the way, thank you very much, Paris Martineau, for filling in for me while I'm on vacation. I did want to come back and tell you about Rocket Money because they have saved me. They've saved me enough to pay for this vacation, come to think of it. Did you know nearly 75% of people have subscriptions they have forgotten about? Subscriptions, yeah, you know, things like fitness apps and streaming services and delivery services. When I started using Rocket Money, I couldn't believe how much I was paying for that I'd completely forgotten about. I found campaign contributions from 2022 that I was still paying monthly, and I canceled it with Rocket Money. I found just the other day a WordPress subscription I'd forgotten about, got $300 back thanks to Rocket Money. Rocket Money saves me money on all those subscriptions I've completely forgotten about. It's a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions. But it does a whole lot more. Rocket Money also monitors your spending, helps you lower your bills so you can grow savings. It's really an easy-to-use app. I can see all my subscriptions in one place, and if I see something I don't want, Rocket Money can help me cancel it with a few taps. They'll deal with customer service for you. Awesome. Rocket Money. More than 5 million users. It saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions. On average, it saves members $740 a year when you use all the app's features. It saved me more than that. I love Rocket Money. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/twig. That's rocketmoney.com/twig. You got to try this thing. It's awesome. rocketmoney.com/twig. Now, back to This Week in Google. Paris, you're doing a great job. Thanks for filling in for me.
Thanks, Leo. This morning, the House approved a bill to force TikTok to either cut ties with ByteDance or be banned in the U.S. The bill is now moving to the Senate, where its prospects are less clear. Its passage through the House was crazy fast. It was only introduced last week and passed by a House panel on a unanimous vote. TikTok has tried to lobby against the bill, asking users, whenever you use the app, you've probably seen the pop-up come up, it's asking users to call their representative to protest. Apparently that's already alienated some Congress people. Who would have guessed? Biden has said that he'll sign it if it reaches his desk, but it's unclear if that will happen. If it gets there, implementation will likely be delayed because TikTok's expected to file suit to block it. Meanwhile, China is also expected to block ByteDance's attempts to sell TikTok if it gets to this. Jeff, I think before the show you were saying you're going to get mad about this, so get mad. Yeah.
I actually heard someone on MSNBC this morning say, it was Mikey Sherrill from New Jersey who said, TikTok is against free speech, so what are we going to do? We're going to take away the free speech. The House logic here is just awful. It's moral panic, drink everybody, meeting political nihilism. It is ridiculous. As Morning Joe goes on about all the Chinese propaganda, I don't see any Chinese propaganda there, and give some credit to citizens that in a democracy, we can hear it and laugh at it and get rid of it. We're not sheeple. And a lot of people and a lot of voices who otherwise are not heard in big old white mass media now have their stage, and they're going to take it away. And so it pisses me off majorly.
Could we get the moral panic clip to play, folks?
Nice.
Oh, no.
I got a bad
Where's
feeling
the audio?
about this.
There we go.
Thank you.
It's a moral panic, everybody.
Cue the moral panic.
I think one of the most interesting things about this is, I mean, this isn't the first time TikTok has, the U.S. has tried to ban TikTok, but apparently TikTok was blindsided by the bill. The Wall Street Journal reported that just 2 weeks ago, executives from TikTok's U.S. operations flew to their company's headquarters in Singapore to meet with their bosses and tell them everything was A-okay with the app and that they totally weren't in danger of being banned. Obviously, a big miscalculation. Inside TikTok, some leaders were apparently aware that lawmakers were working on legislation, but they didn't expect it would win so much support so quickly. Some of the people familiar with the matter told the Wall Street Journal.
What do you think young voters are going to say about this?
They're not going to understand the nuances of it, and they're going to get mad that they can't watch TikTok.
I mean, yeah, they're probably going to blame the Biden administration and be quite pissed. I thought it was interesting. My colleague, Kaya Yuriev, who writes our Creator Economy newsletter, was at South by Southwest this week and kind of did a little scene report from, the various panels with creators. Apparently, creators are totally unfazed with this. A TikToker named Remy had said at a panel, a lot of creators are probably ignoring this right now because we've heard it so many times and it's possible that it could happen. Which, I mean, I think that that's probably the approach that most users in the app are taking. Like, this is not the first time. It's happened many times over the last 4 years that TikTok's going to be banned panic. I don't know. Do you think that they actually have the political clout to do this time? It seems unlikely that the Senate would approve this, but I also wouldn't have expected the House to unanimously push this through.
I think there's momentum behind it. I'm not a policy guy, but cleared the House surprisingly fast. It popped up surprisingly fast. I just don't know if any of the old people in the Senate really care. I think they'll be like, I don't like China.
Yeah.
So, sure. Who gives a damn?
It's like being against child porn. Being against China is on that list.
I mean, being against child porn is a unanimously agreed upon thing, I would hope. But the China one is kind of like, that one is beginning to get to, I mean, the Tom Cotton part of those hearings where he was just repeatedly racist against that one guy who was very much not wasn't he like, I'm from Singapore. What are you talking about?
Yeah. The ByteDance executive who he was trying to accuse of being a Chinese spy.
What are you talking about, man?
Where are you from? Where are you really from?
Where are you really from?
I think a journalist should have gone.
Sorry, continue.
A journalist should have gone all race purity on Tom Cotton. They should have like traced his background back to another country that wasn't America just to mess with him, because that is the same thing. It's disgraceful that happened. And this bill is kind of disgraceful too. It doesn't seem to actually be fixing any problems. It seems to be setting up standards to punish other apps, while also, if the CCP actually has access to TikTok data, that's incredibly dangerous. Like, I think that people need to realize that. If there's any proven...
For the average citizen, how dangerous is it? What's the harm? Where's the danger?
I don't think it's the danger now. It's the danger that could be there. But at the same time...
Would they come invade? I mean, really?
But that's kind of like, it is a good point. Like, what can they do with that data? What does that data say? Now, the example given by one of the witnesses in the ByteDance hearings was that the CCP used it to chase down dissidents in Hong Kong.
That's another matter.
And that is disgraceful, disgusting, and could be bad. Like, I mean... Doesn't China have... But
dissidents, every Chinese student I've ever had is extremely savvy about this and very careful. It doesn't matter what the platform is. It doesn't matter anything else. And they're not going to come on and say, I'm going to criticize the regime on TikTok and think I'm safe. They know better.
Does that mean that we shouldn't protect them?
Yeah. But I'm saying that this presumption that that's how the Chinese government is going to use it is naive.
But it's how they've been potentially using it already.
Well, we've had... back in the day, one of the first horrible things that happened is Yahoo dimed a dissident, and he went to jail for many, many years.
I just think that this is not the way to do it, but something has to be done. But I am not aware of what that would be. And the speed at which this has been pushed through and the way it's being pushed through is harmful for America more than it is harmful for China or TikTok. And
Jason
also,
Kobler over at 404 Media had an interesting take on it today. I mean, yeah, the GOAT. That the U.S., the headline of the article was the U.S. wants to ban TikTok for the sins of every social media company.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that is a really relevant point here, is that we wouldn't be in this place where we are today with this really coalesced animus towards TikTok if it wasn't incredibly politically expedient for politicians on both sides of the aisle here in the U.S. to be rallying their forces against big tech generally. I think we see this with every of these nonsense social media hearings, one of which our very own Jeff Jarvis participated in. I don't really know how we go back from this.
I also think that perhaps, I don't know, here's an idea. So there's a executive order that was going out that was going to restrict the flow of sensitive data through intermediaries like data brokers to foreign countries like China. America's fine, though. No need to protect Americans' data from American companies. That's what's really bothering me about this. There are things that TikTok has done or might do or theoretically could do that American companies do today.
Yeah, and that's why it's Canada wants to stop data from coming here. The EU wants to stop data from coming here for exactly what you're saying, Ed, because America does bad stuff.
And it's just like, how about Meta? Why didn't we make Mark Zuckerberg divest from Meta, before it was called Meta, obviously, when Cambridge Analytica came out? Why was there no effort to do that?
Don't get me going there. Cambridge Analytica was a bunch of BS.
Regardless.
I mean, yes.
Facebook has, even when you put that aside, Facebook has stopped providing a service. Facebook has taken advantage of the people using the platform.
I assume executives at Meta have to be salivating at the thought of TikTok being banned.
Oh, I'm sure.
Could not be better for Meta.
I don't know. It's a precedent that they're not going to be very happy about, I think.
Oh, no, I think they'll
certainly
love the idea that
but I think
as
like a company who is, their current focus is trying to get users to spend a lot more time on Instagram Reels, which is effectively a TikTok clone.
Yeah, they'll run into the void. Yeah, that's true.
It's frustrating because this kind of shows that there's not real concern about the, like Jason Kobler was saying, these are things that lots of social networks do. And it sucks that the actual problem isn't that. The problem is China. It's just a kind of vague xenophobia.
That's interesting, yeah.
Not xenophobia, that shit. What's the word? Regardless, racism, xenophobia. Just call it what it is. There is a degree here of just the fear of China. Ooh, the scary China. It's disgraceful. And also, it isn't protecting anyone. No one is safer because of this. All it's going to do is allow Bobby goddamn Kotick, who oversaw the destruction of Activision Blizzard, who oversaw multiple allegations of sexual harassment, a horrifying culture in Activision. Now he's saying, oh, I might buy TikTok. That's a better situation? You want to trust that greasy pervert? These are our saviors? It just all of this frustrates me because it isn't being done for anyone other than a vague vibe of political goodness or social, not even social, just economic goodness.
Yeah, the Wall Street Journal reported earlier this week that Kotick, the former CEO of Activision, is looking for partners at a dinner at an Allen & Co. conference earlier this week, the Wall Street Journal writes. Kotick floated the idea of partnering to buy TikTok to a table of people that included OpenAI CEO Sam Altman.
Great.
OpenAI could use TikTok to help train its AI models if a partner such as Kotick could raise the capital for such an acquisition. It all seems to converge.
Right there, it's the selling. They're not going to sell.
Of course, they're not going to sell. And I mean, if this somehow ends up passing the Senate and ends up on Biden's desk where he signs it, we're going to have a protracted legal battle before it ever gets to a place where...
Yeah, about the first effing amendment.
Yeah.
This is a matter of freedom of expression in this country.
I guess I'll say more on that. Is it a matter of freedom of expression? It's a company.
Yeah, I absolutely think so. Not of ByteDance, but of all the people, all the citizens on TikTok whose speech is cut off. There is a class action, I think, there to say that you're taking away our platform, our means
away access
to
a private enterprise.
Well, no different. And I don't believe the internet is a medium, but now putting that aside, it'd be no different from saying that Simon & Schuster is outlawed. Do the authors at that point, by the government, the authors at that point have action? Their platform for speaking is gone. Take away WordPress. Take away an open source platform. Mm-hmm. It's a matter of expression, and we don't, we respect books. We don't respect TV. We don't respect the internet.
We're not directly taking. I am not a lawyer. Not sure any of us are.
No.
I have to call mine regularly, but for things that I say, that's a joke. But isn't the whole thing
Mr. Kodak, he's very sorry. He didn't read
Greasy
it.
pervert is protected under free speech, by the way. I can call you that, Bobby.
It's his opinion.
Email me, Bobby. We'll get you on the pod, you nasty freak. Anyway, I thought the whole thing with the First Amendment, though, was that it was restricting individual speech. By banning a platform, would that count? I'm honestly would be fascinated either way.
Yeah, there's a class action there.
The fans at home. This is tremendous content.
Yeah.
I do think it's also interesting. My colleagues at The Information reported yesterday that unlike all of the previous times that TikTok has been threatened with a ban, the investors aren't, it doesn't seem like they're coming to the rescue this time. Like few of the ByteDance investors that had previously lobbied for TikTok are doing it now. They've basically said that they don't see any reason to speak out in such a polarizing issue and are afraid that they could be, quote, perceived as disloyal to the U.S. if they come out in support of TikTok.
Or do they think that the Senate is not, that this is all performative? The House wanted to get their yayas. The Senate's not going to pass it. And so we don't worry about it.
It seems like there's a couple different parts here. One is they're worried about wasting, like venture capitalists seem to be worried about wasting their like political clout and want to pick their battles because they say that they have upcoming battles around AI and defense tech that they think are really important and want to save their political capital to engage with. But they've also said, and this is quoting from the article, that after 4 years of an on and off again discussion about the ban, there's a growing chance that TikTok will be forced to withdraw from the U.S. They noted that a U.S. ban wouldn't end TikTok. The app could still operate outside the country, although its ability to make money would be sorely diminished given the U.S. is the world's biggest ad market. And some VCs even play down the financial impact that TikTok has on ByteDance, arguing that the Chinese tech company might in some ways be healthier without it. I think it's very interesting that this seems to be a moment where some of the company's biggest supporters are also bowing to pressure. I was a bit surprised by this sudden pivot too.
The internet is very unpopular right now.
I mean, it is, but also I think that the venture capital firms might be a little bit scared of the government. Because if perhaps they went and looked at how much money they put into things like crypto or metaverse, or how much money they put into just completely non-existent, like I think like a weight loss startup got 450 million, 500 million in 2021. There's a lot of things that VCs did that definitely flaunted very basic due diligence. Look at FTX, for example. And I think that they're scared of the exposure, and I don't blame them. I wouldn't want it. And also,
yeah, especially after the huge boom time we're just coming off, where anything kind of goes. It is now crunch time.
But also, TikTok's not a sympathetic character. It's a multi-billion-dollar monstrosity algorithm machine. And Mark Zuckerberg hates it because he was never able to create an algorithm this good.
Right. But everybody's kid likes it.
Of course. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying the perspective that people are coming from. I find it upsetting. It makes me feel 100 years old. I load it up.
I was going to say, do you use TikTok? I assume you don't make TikToks, but do you watch them?
I can't understand it. I use it and I see how... No, it really is. I'm getting old. I've never been good at video either, but also there's something that gives me anxiety that the feed never ends, that there's always more. And
I mean, that's every website now, though.
No,
Feeds
but it's
don't
worse
end.
there. But it's also, I'm being fed stuff that I didn't ask for, which also really upsets me. I don't like the algorithm interfering as much as it does, or at least I like it to be a little less overt with it. Instagram is bordering on unusable for the same reason, but TikTok is just hyper aggressive with it. I kind of respect the fact that they're so honest with it. It's just like, yeah, we control this. You're going to see whatever we want. We want, you little pig.
Jeff, you watch TikTok through the app, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious if you've had the same experience. I feel like the main point of TikTok is they hyper curate your feed to be everything you'd want and more. But I've noticed the last maybe dozen times I've opened TikTok for the past couple of weeks, my feed is bananas. It is completely random. It is like all preferences they've previously had for me have gone out the window. I'm not seeing any more content about the guy with the eel pit or the woman who was illegally digging tunnels, which are my two favorite TikTok subjects. Suddenly I'm just seeing random stuff out there. There are still cat videos usually, which is what's keeping me going back, or strange musical content. Have you noticed any change to your algorithm?
My theory, yes, I have, but it's sporadic. I find that like every third day, boy, it's feeling weird today. And then the next day it's stuff I like. I think they try stuff out on you to see what happens. And then they go back to what they want.
I've never managed to get it dialed in. It's never engaged me. I've never been like, I must watch this. But also, I just don't consume that much video. Like, I'm not even saying it's a bad app. I don't like video that much. I am
similar. I don't watch YouTube videos ever, is my famous statement in the podcast.
I either watch no YouTube videos or like 12-minute long ones. And, but it's just this whole bill, I think we can wrap it up by saying, who does it help? Who's this actually protecting? Who does this benefit?
This bill? Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that it helps.
The centralization of power in the hands of a few guys, white guys within the tech industry. It is white homogeneity pushed at scale. It's going to make rich men even richer. It's going to centralize the same tools, by the way. The same things are basically done using American social networks. Look at what Jason Kobler's tweeting right now. And it sucks. It sucks because if there was a real problem, I'd love to see it. And
what we should be doing is supporting open source. We should be supporting Mastodon and pushing Blue Sky and even Threads to open up. Blue Sky just opened up its moderation structure. Good name, Ozone. I like that.
Oh, I
love Blue Sky. Blue Sky's brilliant.
I love Blue Sky.
I like it a lot.
I haven't been posting there as much. I've been tweeting a lot lately, getting back into it, but I've got to start Blue Sky.
Yeah, be loyal to
well.
Blue Sky. Threads, the problem is people I like are on Threads, but I don't like Threads as much.
It is a putrid place. It is like, it's like someone created LinkedIn After Dark, which is not that fun.
That sounds like someplace Jason Calacanis would be.
That is true.
God, yeah. No, he goes on Twitter and he goes, you know what? Racism's bad, but have we thought about why? And it would just be like a horrible thread where he's giving credence to someone very racist. He did a whole thing about Alex Jones where he was like, well, I don't agree, but why don't I agree? And he does this, I'm just asking the questions thing, this vile right-wing thing, like a classic right-wing trope. And he's like, I wasn't saying I even want Alex Jones back, but now he's coming back. Isn't that interesting? It's just... It's very frustrating, all of that stuff. Completely different subject, I realize.
Switching gears a little bit, there was a really interesting story from Kashmir Hill at the New York Times this week.
Yes,
I don't know if you guys saw it, on how the auto industry is collecting reams of data about consumers' driving habits and sharing it with insurance companies. The opening anecdote in the story follows a guy named Ken Dahl, who drives a leased Chevrolet Bolt and says he's a careful driver. He's never been responsible for an accident. And Dahl was surprised in 2022 when the cost of his car insurance skyrocketed by 21%. Quotes from other insurance companies were also high, and one insurance agent told him that his LexisNexis report was a factor. LexisNexis is this New York-based kind of global data broker. They cater to the auto insurance industry with this one kind of division they have, and has traditionally kept tabs on car accidents and tickets and like helps determine potential insurance rates from that. Dahl wanted to know what was causing his insurance increase, so he requested info from LexisNexis under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. LexisNexis sent him a 258-page consumer disclosure report. And what it contained stunned him. This is from the Times. More than 130 pages detailing each time he or his wife had driven their Bolt over the previous 6 months. It included the dates of 640 trips, their start and end times, the distance driven, and an accounting of any speeding, hard braking, or sharp accelerations. The only thing it didn't have was where they had driven their car. And so according to this report, the trip details had been provided to LexisNexis by GM, the manufacturer of the Chevy Bolt. And a bunch of insurance companies had requested information about Dahl from LexisNexis over the previous month. A quote from Dahl said, "It felt like a betrayal. They're taking information that I didn't realize was going to be shared and screwing with our insurance." And I think kind of the money quote in this story is, automakers and data brokers that have partnered to collect detailed driving data from millions of Americans say that they have drivers' permission to do so, but the existence of these partnerships is nearly invisible to drivers whose consent is obtained in fine print and murky privacy policies that few read. As someone who doesn't drive, I feel it's inappropriate for me to react to this story, so I'm turning it over to the two, who I assume, drivers in this on this podcast today.
Ed?
I mean, welcome to the machine. I mean, this has been going on since Metro Mile came in, since Progressive over a decade ago started doing an OMD thing. You click into your car that would lower your insurance. They've been collecting this data forever. How do you think the insurance rates have changed over the years? They've changed because they've been collecting this data. I assume that Tesla, with their insurance, does the same thing. In fact, I'm fairly sure they do something like this. And guess what? This is the future. This is why having a car full of stuff, full of tech, full of apps is actually a really bad thing. I don't like that much information out there, yet there it is. I hope, this, by the way, this feels like something that the government and the House and Congress need to get their up in arms about. Basic transparency in data collection and its use. That is this story should be bigger than TikTok because this is affecting more Americans right now today. The cost of car insurance is an incredible burden on the average American. I have a beautiful Volvo XC40 electric car. It's got mechanical doors. They open and close. It goes forwards, backwards, side to side. It's an amazing vehicle.
Does it have one of those screens that does all?
It
can
it has a screen, but it also has a beautiful physical knob. Fun little side. I met Steve Wozniak the other day, and he was talking to me about how electric cars suck because they all have screens, right? And how he hates Lucid Motors because they've got big screens and everything's got a screen. Mercedes got a screen. And I think that that's part of the problem. But the other problem is how much of that data, because a lot of them have like sensors about driver awareness, for example, how engaged you are with the road. These are the things that are going to really screw people. Don't be scared of China coming in through the TikTok app. Be scared of the American manufacturers that are currently tracking how much you are seeing the road, how engaged you feel. These are the scary things.
Especially because these tools aren't always accurate. I know with the driver awareness tool, when I reported on Amazon, they had kind of installed these in the cabs of some of their trucks and, driver vans. And there was kind of massive wave of complaints from drivers, not because they were like, oh, we want to not pay attention to the road, because they're like, I'll be sitting there driving, paying attention to the road, and it will ding me 5 times for inattention. Perhaps because, the person driving is Asian or just not white, and the camera can't properly attune itself to their eyes.
This has been a
slippery slope.
Well,
Jeff, do you have a smart car?
Sorry,
it's probably a middle school car. It's 10 years old. So probably doesn't have all of this. No. I had to spend $600 to get Android Auto added to it.
What is that?
Android Auto, same as your Apple. I can look at the map on the car screen. It has a screen. Yeah. I think first let's underscore, as we like to say in journalism, great reporting by Kashmir Hill.
Fantastic.
This is the kind of privacy
such a
story.
Good journalism.
Yeah, instead of doing the moral panic about the internet is taking all of our data and I don't know my data. And with it's non-specific and not to the point. This is specific. It is a violation of your own space and what you do. Point one. Point two, none of this requires the internet. This is about evil data brokers and evil insurance companies. And the data is going to be out there. What's needed from legislators, as you say, Ed, what's absolutely needed now is for them to come out. So what they can do is they can forbid the use of this data. You can't, it's going to be collected for various reasons, for various things. Okay, whatever. You can forbid it being collected. You can forbid it being used for insurance. That's what legislators are for.
Or you could even, at the bare minimum, mandate that they disclose it's being collected and give you the opportunity to opt out.
But also, to your point earlier, Paris, like, remember Kinect, Microsoft's camera? Like the thing for the Xbox? It couldn't see black people. The panopticon systems that many contractors use, the ones that they use to tell if you're actually watching the screen, they continually see things like dreadlocks or even just the hair of African American people as things that suggest they're not there. These systems are biased. They are racially biased. And that's before you get to the obvious, like, this is just invasive. These systems are biased against people, like many algorithmic systems, like the mortgage system that was something like 80%. There was an insane amount of bias in the mortgage system. Using data sets to make calls like this is insane. And by the way, I'm correct. Tesla does have a safe driving system for their insurance. They give you a score, kind of similar to Metromile. These companies want to do this, and they're doing it because guess what? They can now hyper justify how they judge you. But guess what? If these are the systems, then to be clear, there is a separate thing here. There is the I'm tracking where you're going and what you're doing. That is separate to racial discrimination and the engagement systems. Those I don't know if they're using that data. But just the very basic driving here, that is going to have a class issue as well. If you're driving through rougher neighborhoods, which as judged by an insurance company, if you're driving in such a way that suggests your profile is now risky, which is racially biased, these systems are going to hurt so many people, and they already are. And yet here we are chasing TikTok. I realize I'm repeating the point. It's just like, this is a thing hurting people today. Kashmir does a great job at this. Kashmir's done great work on data brokers. Companies like Spokio and Telius. These companies
Axios.
Axios.
Not Axios, Axiom.
Sorry. Axiom, there you go. I was like,
close, but not quite.
Kill me.
It could be the next business model they have. Who knows? But we got to. And
these companies are actual scum. They're actually dangerous to Americans. Data brokers, you can pay someone $25 a month to look up everything. They can find out your phone number, your address. In many cases, sounds like a moral panic. It actually really isn't. Companies like Bean have made good money deleting that information from the internet, but there's only so much you can do. These are things to target. Data brokers should be illegal.
But here's the other issue. Well, two things. One, data brokers go way back. When I worked at Time Inc., we used data brokers like crazy, and that's how we did subscription models and all this kind of stuff. I used to scare students and say, let me go to Axiom, not Axios, and I'd say, let me find out the names and addresses of, just to be really creepy, women between the ages of 21 and 35 who live within N miles of this place, who have a college degree and a car. And it'll give it to me. Far more than the internet ever does. Far more. But here's the other issue. I just said we need laws, we need legislators. But of course, government is the worst enemy of privacy. Because what's going to happen is, fine, this data doesn't tell the insurance company where you went, but it's discoverable, and certain states are going to come in and find out whether or not you went to an abortion clinic. And the data's there.
You're so right.
And that's the real issue.
Happening.
Exactly. And so there needs to be transparency. There needs to be the right to erase it. Again, it's not the internet. It's your car and the insurance company and your state's government that are the real problems here. Yeah, the internet can do stuff too, but it's more anonymized there. It's not in your personal space. This is about, I wrote a book about privacy called Public Parts. And so I learned about all this stuff.
Wow, a rare drink opportunity. We never get private parts.
Another one, yeah. Public parts.
Private
parts is
private parts different.
Yes. I dedicated it to Howard Stern as a result because he was part of the title. Anyway, there is no right to privacy in the Constitution. It was invented by case law over time. It's something that, and I believe in the value of publicness and being out there and talking. I believe in the value of privacy. We've got to protect it. Mm-hmm. But it's and the problem I have is that when you have crap like Shoshana Zuboff and surveillance capitalism, it ruins it because it just goes overboard with, I'm going to say it again, moral panic in a way that's not really about harm. It's not really about the real problems. It's a distraction. When it's this kind of stuff, don't pay attention to Zuboff. Pay attention to Kashmir Hill. There.
Yeah.
Karl Bode wrote a really good breakdown of Kashmir's article in TechDirt, which I'll quote from a little bit here. Again, like countless past scandals, this is the direct byproduct of a country that has proven too corrupt to pass even a baseline privacy law for the internet era, too corrupt to regulate data brokers, and obsessed with steadily defanging, defunding, understaffing, and curtailing the authority of regulators tasked with overseeing corporations, the broad and reckless disdain for U.S. consumer privacy and safety.
Yep.
I do think he has a point.
Karl rocks. Karl Mutt's nuts, that fella. He's absolutely ruthless. He's one of the few people who was on Elon Musk early. He was pushing very hard. Of course, not just want to be clear, like Laura Kolodny, very early on the Elon beat, absolutely ruthless. Big up to Laura.
Yep.
But
Big
Karl
up to
has done
Laura.
an excellent job of really getting to the heart of how angry you should be. Because I used to, and I feel like this thing is a lot of what the tech industry does that leads to things like this is they turn everything into a very complex shell. They make it sound like magic. Goes back to the AI thing, goes back to TikTok, all this. None of these senators could really explain to you why TikTok's bad. They're just like, China.
Right.
China's scary. They're in my phone. This thing with the cars sounds complex, was signed in a complex way, but is fairly simple. They are invading your privacy. And I feel like there should be someone in Congress, the House, dare I say even the president, who could just say these things like Karl is. Karl is actually very cleanly spoken and furious about this stuff, as he should be. And I feel like more people in tech should be. I'm angry. Every time I read about this stuff, I get angry because you see the world burning around you and you see the fire engines all rolling up to a house that isn't on fire. And it's just...
Yeah, but who wants to go after? You're going after, in this case, the auto industry, the insurance industry, and the data broker industry, which all politicians use for all of their direct mail and
Of course.
Advertising.
Yeah,
And
if they want to be cowards, they can.
Yeah, well, they're going to be.
Well, that sucks.
On another positive note, I think that we should use this opportunity to go to an ad break. Jeff Jarvis, Ed Zitron, everybody. And now we're going to go to an ad break. I want to talk next about a great article that the New York Times did on taking a deep look into Musk's charitable foundation.
Yes.
And I want to also throw it to Ed for kind of an overview of this a little bit, because I know you just did a podcast episode about this where you interviewed one of the authors of it, David Farenthold. I guess, could you tell me a little bit about the article and
Who's
what
a god.
that was like? Yeah.
An absolute legend, David. He jumped on the phone the day after the article went out. What a legend. So long story short, Elon Musk parked about $5-6 billion of Tesla shares. To be clear, he didn't buy them. These are just shares he had in the Musk Foundation, a non-profit. Now, part of the rules of doing this is you have to spend 5% of it every year to qualify for the $2 billion odd tax break he got. He regularly fails to do so. He regularly fails to donate enough money to do so. But he also, unlike, say, Larry Page's foundation, he doesn't dump it in a donor-advised fund, which is kind of a black box for giving grants to people. No, he has no staff. He has 2 unpaid volunteers, and he is the other person on the board. And it isn't really obvious where the money goes. When it does go somewhere, it goes in either very small amounts and does very little, or very large amounts and also does very little. There is a school called Ad Astra which is literally inside a SpaceX compound where Musk's own children go. It used to be outside, now it's inside a SpaceX compound. They got several $1 million. He gave $100 million from the Musk Foundation to another nonprofit just called The Foundation.
Really firing on all cylinders there.
Which is so
the
good.
Foundation.
It really is good.
And Rand.
It bought a bunch of land out very close to a boring company site in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool, very good stuff there. He also donated $55 million to a cause of a guy who auctioned off seats on a SpaceX flight, who then immediately bought 3 more seats on another SpaceX flight.
And I think one of the interesting things that David, the reporter, brought up in your interview is part of what is supposed to be happening here is if you are getting this tax break from being a charitable organization, you have to do charitable things, meaning you have to do things that benefit the public good. And this article, the thing that it kind of hits again and again is that it's unclear if any of kind of the Musk Foundation's investments or philanthropic endeavors, it's unclear who they benefit outside of Elon Musk or Elon Musk's employees and customers, which is incredibly unusual for a charitable foundation.
Well, a good one he did as well is he said he was going to fix the water contamination problems that plagued Flint, Michigan. Promised he'd do so. He actually tweeted at one point that he'd already done so and then deleted the tweet in 2018. He gave him about $1.2 million, which is, it's good he did something. They bought water filters for the school. They bought laptops for the school. Great idea. They then responded to him with a 4-page plan, basically saying, here's how we will do the thing you promised to help us with. And then you can fix the water as you promised. He sent a Tesla development executive to Flint, Michigan, who gave people rides around the parking lot of City Hall. A ride in a Tesla? That's incredibly charitable. And then he said, hey, well, we might build an office out here. You'll never guess what happened. He didn't build anything.
No.
He didn't fix Flint, Michigan at all.
Some of the details in this story are just wild. I mean, as you'd expect from an Elon Musk story, some of them are kind of, I'll quote from it here. Among the donations the Musk Foundation has made, there was $55 million to help a major SpaceX customer meet a charitable pledge. There were millions that went to Cameron County, Texas after a rocket blew up. And there were donations to 2 schools closely tied to his business. One that was literally physically walled off inside a SpaceX compound, and the other, like you mentioned, is located next to a new subdivision for Musk employees. I just want to go into a little bit more about the one you mentioned, Ad Astra, which is Latin for to the stars, ostensibly was founded by Musk as a nonprofit school to explore new ways to teach math and science. And this is from the Times again. But that school, too, would serve a personal purpose for Mr. Musk. In its first year of operation out of his home in the Bel Air neighborhood of LA, 5 of Ad Astra's 14 students were his own children. The headmaster said the only criteria for admission were, quote, kindness and eagerness to learn and parents that worked at SpaceX.
Company store. I just want to, again, underscore. I made fun of the New York Times using the verb underscore the other day for what reporters really want to say themselves. So anyway, I'll underscore Kashmir Hill and David Fahrenthold. The Times is driving me completely batty lately with its credulous coverage of fascism and its Biden, but his birthday polls and all this stuff. But the Times is also the repository for people like Fahrenthold and Hill who do this kind of great work. And we just more of this, please, less of the other crap.
Yeah, it's how I feel. And David was great as well. He was a real.
He's a prince.
But he was also very entertaining. Like he was very into the story, and you could tell it frustrated him. And you could tell he'd like physically gone out to where Ad Astra was meant to be, but he wasn't able to get any. He said this in the podcast, but there was just a sign basically saying, "Do not pass." I forget what the nonsense they say. So it's like no unauthorized entry, blah 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 blah, for a school, just to be clear. And it's just one of the more depressing things he said though is the people that would regulate this are like the IRS and other parts of the government that are underfunded. And it sucks. It sucks because Musk will get away with this. And Ryan Mack, who was the co-reporter on the piece as well, he did a good amount of pavement pounding, and he basically found that no one talked to Musk about the foundation. The Musk Foundation, I should say. He didn't bring it up. It was not something that he talked about. It's not something he thought about. It's just a big tax dodge. And something else that Farrenhold added at the end of the podcast was, he was saying, and I mentioned it earlier, Larry Page is the same deal. He just dumps it into a donor-advised fund, but he doesn't invest as much as he needs to. And it's just a way for them to get away with it. And I think that Musk probably doesn't want to spend that money because he doesn't want to liquidate billions of dollars of Tesla stock. What's also disgusting is everyone who covered every single time he claimed he would do anything with this foundation while nothing happened. Every major publication, Wall Street Journal headline was, Musk gives 11.6 million Tesla shares to charity, failing to put in that headline the words his own.
Right.
Failing to follow up. This stuff has been out there a while. A lot of this is publicly available stuff. It's not my job to run a PR firm, but journalism should have been on this already. But I think there is, if not a fear of Elon Musk, there is still this want to believe that he means well. And Kara Swisher has been
I think it's the same sort of dynamic that we saw with Trump, where it's like the traditional media apparatus is not equipped to handle someone who manipulates the truth at such a, regularity. They are equipped.
All you need to do is refer to him as a con artist. But I realize
all you need to do is put his statements in context with reality. But I remember seeing this right after, I think, when his star was rising with the acquisition of Twitter, there was some completely asinine tweet or something that he'd put out that Bloomberg or someone wrote a whole story about it as if it was true. And of course, it just ended up being something he tweeted and never ended up revisiting.
That's every Musk story.
But it's every Musk story and every Musk tweet.
He was going to $6 billion world hunger tweet. Neuralink customer. We put it in the first thing. Tweet. I'm going to buy Wikipedia. Tweet.
Well, it's the same with Trump. Every utterance, it becomes a story.
Sure. Except it's dumber with Elon Musk. He is Musk and Trump are both proven liars. They're both dangerous to society in both different ways. With Musk, tech industry knows better. But I think the tech industry, look, if you want to just be an enthusiast industry, that's fine. Be happy with everyone. No critiques for anyone. You can't critique some, but not all. Musk has posted multiple great replacement theories things. He is continually doing this right-wing firebrand nonsense, this anti-immigrant stuff. He is out and out racist. He posted something very racist against African Americans a couple months ago to do with sex, which I'm just not going to go any further on. And nobody did anything. The great replacement thing was a few weeks ago. Nobody covered. Nobody. But they will cover when he farts and says, "Oh, I'm going to remove likes.
I've improved the environment."
Yes, we're going to make the tweets go sideways now. And the thing is, you know who actually has done a really good job on this? I'm going to give a lot of credit to TechCrunch. TechCrunch, who really did start off as kind of very rah-rah for tech, has been damning on Musk. Goes to people like Amanda Silberling, does an excellent job. Sadly, Darrell Etherington's moved on from there now, but they're doing a great job calling out, but CNBC isn't. CNBC, other than Laura Kolodny, who is absolutely amazing and does a hell of a job there, it undermines great reporting like that when you sideline it with just Musk's vague promises and outright lies, and then you don't revisit them. And Paris, I get your point. The comparison with Trump is true, except Trump, as a former president and presidential candidate, there is a difference there. Now, he's still covered terribly, but there is a difference. Elon Musk is a private citizen worth billions of dollars. Rip him to shreds. Take his ass down. He only went after Media Matters because he knew they didn't have much money. He won't go after actual journalists other than, here's the thing, the real abdication of authority with Elon Musk is in the hands of Kara Swisher. Kara Swisher should be raked across. She's doing a media tour for Burn Book right now, which is an astonishing book. I mean, just the fact that she's being interviewed by Sam Altman and Reid Hoffman about her book. It's an insult to journalism.
So you read it, so we don't have to. Say more.
Yes. You should read Paris Marx's review of it.
I was just Googling that right now, trying to find it out.
Another great guy. But with those, he makes the point that she kind of acts like she criticized people, but never really got down to it. You should have him on and talk about his review. It's excellent. But the long and short of Kara's book is, yeah, all these people suck, but I was at their parties.
Right.
With Elon Musk, she only turned on him because he called her an asshole. And to be clear, the thing he called her an asshole for was because he misread a tweet where she was supporting the US government, paying him for Starlink in Ukraine. Something he promised to do for free. People like Kara have the ability to stop men like this. They have the ability to say, you are lying. They have a huge, Scott Galloway, same deal. They have
thank you. My bête noir. Why he gets such fucking attention.
I'll be honest, like, they shouldn't get that. Like, Better Offline's a better show than they'll ever put out.
They get attention because they are hyperbolic.
Because they appeal to a very center liberal audience of people who don't really have morals, but they do like posting Instagram things. They appeal to people who don't really want to believe in anything other than that, which feels convenient and doesn't make them think too much. Kara is the arbiter of that kind of information. And on top of that, with Musk, she was still defending his ass well into 2022. She was the one saying he's hard to unpack. Oh, he's hard to unpack. He's so smart and witty. No, he's a flipping dullard. He's a big wobbling candle of boringness. And he's not invented any of the things he claims he invented. His company's boring company, constantly ghosts cities, doesn't do anything, burns people in Las Vegas. He has hurt so many laborers in a very blue-collar city. Elon Musk is a scumbag, and calling him a scumbag, and you don't even have to do it in the newspaper. You just say it in a talk. Maybe you don't give him... Aaron Ross Sorkin shouldn't be sitting there for the Times and going, oh, Elon, tell me about your things. Tell me about your travails. No, sit there and roast him. And if he won't do the interview, screw him. Say he won't do the interview. It's time to hold these people accountable. Anyway, sorry, stop.
No, this is fantastic. I could let you go on, but I was like, we gotta give Ed a moment to breathe. The great blog, I guess, review of Kara's book, Burn Book, by Paris Marx is called Kara Swisher's Reality Distortion Field. I posted a link to it in the Discord chat. And here's a quote from it. In the end, Burn Book is the story of one of Silicon Valley's most prominent access journalists who took a page from the billionaires she covered and created her own narrative to see and present herself as something else entirely. The story Swisher is trying to tell helps to distance herself from the decades she spent boosting companies that have now been, quote, disastrous, as she herself admits. But it also works for the industry. Letting Swisher present herself as a tough reporter allows Silicon Valley to pretend it was being held to account this whole time, when really Swisher was along for the ride and bought into the tech determinist worldview guiding the industry. What do you think of her, Jeff?
Oh, I same problem. I mean, she blocked me long ago. And I wasn't even saying anything that was that awful. She acts all tough, and she's very oversensitive to criticism herself. I think she could have been a good analyst 20 years ago. I think she could have figured things out. But I'm not sure where it went south. Was it putting people in the red chair and making a lot of money from that?
Yes.
I think that there is this like version. I mean, it's something that many people are, can happen to many people, is when you move from being a down in the trenches reporter to being a quote unquote commentator with like a capital C, and your job is to have tech luminaries or luminaries in the industry sit across from you at a big conference and ask them questions. Part of what is going on there is you are existing in an economy where your continued success relies on the fact that you've got to get those people to pick up your calls and come back for next year's conference. And I think that causes a little bit of brain rot in the sense of it's hard to be truly pushing the envelope in those industries.
But I think Paris too. I've watched Galloway. It was a different case. I used to go to the DLD conference in Munich, and he always did this spiel, 100 slides in 20 minutes, and I'm going to be really funny the whole time. And And then I was on MSNBC once with him on his first appearance on TV, and I saw the drug shot right into his vein. He was agog at being on TV. It's no big deal. I was, on the daytime show, nobody sees it. My mother didn't even notice, who cares? But this was it. This was the drug for him. He wanted fame. And so it wasn't, in his case, it's a little bit different. He gets invited to give hugely expensive talks at places, but he's not an access journalist so much as he's a faux wry voice. And so the two of them together share that BS of acting like they're tough critics of the world. He's a terrible predictor. He's wrong about crap. She's not a tough critic at all. It's an act, and people buy the act.
And that's the thing.
I think part of it, obviously, I think they are responsible for their own actions, bad takes and bad predictions and bad interviewing. But I also think that part of it is what happens when you have chosen to exist within an industry that demands your constant opinions and hot takes on everything on a daily and weekly and monthly basis. We've got this podcast. It's long, but it's once a week that I am expected to give commentary and opinion on a very specific niche amount of events that are changing. She and other commentators of that echelon are doing this every single day. That is how their bread gets buttered.
They have to get on TV to do it.
And you have to get on TV and you've got to get clicks, and it rots the brain. It's the attention economy.
It is. It's the attention economy.
Here. I think you're right, by the way, but there's one other layer, which is skill issue. In the last month and a half, I've done maybe 25 interviews. I have had to come up with opinions for my newsletter for free for years. I've written 3,000 words for pretty much every newsletter, at least the last 12 of them. I do this while running a PR firm. Kara, the job's not that hard. It just isn't. And when you're pretending, and I'll go on TV. I've done tons of podcasts. The second one I did today. Did a bunch yesterday. Did a bunch last week. I'm not boasting. I'm just saying, boo bloody who. If your problem is, but also, it's one thing to be a commentator, and that's fine. That's all I am. I'm not pretending to be a journalist. I'm not doing investigative reporting. I'm raising up things and saying my opinions that I say are as such. Kara Swisher was, her last things at All Things Digital back in 2013 even, were things like funding announcements and tech stocks and stuff. You can't be a news source while also doing what she does, because she's not stupid. Kara Swisher is a great broadcaster. Scott Galloway is a C+ at best. He's dull. When I saw him on the John Oliver Elon Musk thing, I was so angry. So very angry. Because he's a boring sod. No one needs to hear what Scott Galloway, anti-union freak, talking about how he got into boxing so that he could get woman. Loser. Anyways, back to Kara. She is better than this. I think that really is it. She is better than this. And had she stopped pretending that she was some sort of objective arbiter, that she was friends with these people, Puck does a great job with this. No one believes that Puck is not friendly with the billionaires. They're all in with them. They know it. They're upfront with that. I like it. It's why we get interesting stories. The British media is a lot like this as well. They're relatively in bed with sources, but they'll rip them to shreds. People used to go on Jeremy Paxman and get their asses lit up by Paxman because they had to, because these were the terms that the media offered you. Kara Swisher could have offered those terms. She could doesn't even need to be endlessly tough, but sit there and give them a little more push, a little more sizzle. And frankly, there are other journalists who haven't done that as well. I want to give a big shout out of respect, though, to Kevin Roose, who was very wrong at the Times when it came to crypto, but he had Chris Dixon of Andreessen Horowitz on their podcast, ripped him to shreds, called him to account. We need more stuff like that. But also,
but I'm mixed on Roose. I read a lot.
I am also mixed on Roose. I believe he likely lost many people a lot of money by supporting cryptocurrency in the way he did, in a shocking abdication of his responsibility as a journalist.
And I think his coverage of ChatGPT was showboating in the worst sort.
It told me what it
You're
meant to cheat
referring
on my
to the
wife.
front page New York Times story that I'm forgetting the exact name of, but it was right when ChatGPT was first coming on the scene, where he published an quote-unquote interview with ChatGPT or perhaps it was a different chat bot where
it was ChatGPT.
He was saying, "Oh, ChatGPT asked me to divorce my wife," or something like that.
Tried to convince him he was
me.
unhappy with his wife.
He tried again and again and again to get ChatGPT to go to its dark side. And then when he finally succeeded, after the guardrails popped in multiple times, he finally got it to go to wacky places. Then he wrote, "I couldn't get to sleep that night."
It was Bing's chatbot.
But it was ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Which is so funny. Don't put in the newspaper that Bing did a psyop on you. Come on, man. Kevin's smarter than that. But that's the thing. You can, I believe, cover this tech industry and be excited about it. You can say, I find ChatGPT really interesting. You can. The Times has people that have this approach to tech coverage. Brian Chen, fantastic. His repeatedly, with the Apple Watch. He was originally quite negative on the Apple Watch. Wall Street Journal, Joanna Stern, one of the best tech journalists working out there, does some amazing
who today had an interview with the CTO of OpenAI, and it was a good interview, and it was straight on, but the headline was, "It makes these amazing videos and it freaks us out." No, it doesn't
because
freak you out.
that's
You're
what
lying.
gets clicks.
I know,
but
but you're lying.
But you are obfuscating the truth, which is, you should say, initially impressive, but on closer look looks bad. Because that's the story. The story is not what it's what it does, but also what it can do. And in the event that they don't fill it, if the company leaves the gap for the journalist to fill in, the journalist has to go, "I don't know," or say, or maybe not give the most preferential answer. But I still think Joanna does an excellent job. She is the reason that
the interview was very good. It was the editing.
But a lot of this comes back to, what are you doing there? If Kara was just a pure commentator, if that's all she did, if she only claimed to be an opinion person who did entertainment, I'd fully respect it. I'm serious. If it was all it was just entertainment, she's like, I have my biases, I have my things, I'm going to roast them as much as I can.
That was Michael Arrington in the day, right?
I will say, to give Kara exactly 1 point.
I'm saying, I'm not defending him, but I'm just saying he was what he was.
Yeah, if Michael Arrington, if you're saying that he was unashamed in what he was, you're correct.
That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay. A brief aside, to give Kara a tiny bit of credit, today she did get a scoop on a topic that I think is interesting. This talked about, she tweeted earlier today that she tweeted out a scoop, which I'll put aside my judgment on that, about Don Lemon. Specifically, that Don Lemon had partnered with X and Elon Musk, and X had agreed to throw its financial support behind the creation of Lemon's new venture called The Don Lemon Show. But what Kara tweeted out today is that the first interview for the show was publicized as being between Don Lemon and Elon Musk. And today, after the interview happened, Elon Musk sent a terse text to Lemon's reps saying, "Contract terminated, the show is off," because Lemon did a tough interview. And I guess the interview happened last Friday. That was not to Elon Musk's liking. It included questions about his ketamine use and other subjects. I mean, this seems pretty obvious that someone like Don Lemon should have seen it coming. But of course, now
he did a deal with the devil.
He did, and now he's
I think it's really nice that Don Lemon interviewed Kara Swisher about her book Burn Book at the 92nd Street Y in New York. I think it's interesting that I wonder if she asked him about the sexual harassment.
She did.
Allegation.
She says in her tweets on this, I told Don that this is exactly what would occur at a recent
Oh, wow. Thank you, Kara. Did you ask him if he's a pervert? Seriously, I'm going by the British standard where these questions would get asked. I've come from the Paxman School. You got to ask the questions, and you need to, when they answer them, you need to ask further questions. I get that it's difficult, but guess what? These people they have to talk to the press. They have to. Even Musk has to. Musk can run scared, but he needs the press to an extent. Also, by the way, do you remember when Sam Altman was out at OpenAI and Kara Swisher was getting scoops? And it was very obvious. It was just like, it was a mixture of bollocks and Greg Brockman just texting her directly. Yeah. It's just, that's what I don't get. She has this opinion gig. She can just go on whatever and get a bunch of money for speeches.
But it's access, man. It's access. But also, it's fame.
I get it. But just enjoy the fame. Stop trying to pretend like you're like doing journalism. It sucks. She's not stupid. She's a great broadcaster. Why can't she do better? That's the thing. This isn't a case where someone's rubbish at their job and they're incapable of doing it. Is this that fun? Is this fun? Does this?
It seems to be lucrative at the very least.
Sure, but it'd be just as lucrative to actually do a good job.
Well, she's tried to. The other thing about her career is she's like a human NFT. She'll.
That's the wildest description I've ever heard you use.
Well, it's the short attention span. I'm a hard-ass journalist. I'm a host of events. I'm a podcaster. I'm a columnist. I'm a podcaster again. I'm a this. I'm a that.
She's a public brand.
Yeah, but she so along comes the New York Times and makes her a columnist. If you're a public brand, that's not a bad gig.
No.
But then she just doesn't keep it up very long. She has a short attention span. It's not of great value.
It just sucks because she does know a lot. She's not like she has great context for this entire industry, decades worth. And if Burn Book had been just her saying, I don't know what I've become, had it been something like that, had this thing come out and she
that would have
said,
been quite interesting if
like,
it
I don't
actually
know what
explored
I
her
am
relationship
compared
with these folks.
Yeah. Well, also just, even if she's like, I don't want to lose these friendships, she just said that. If she was just like, I don't know what I am now compared to what I was before, I would have a deep abiding respect for her. I really would. I would genuinely be impressed at the introspection and an acceptance of what has happened, because being empathetic with her, taken away by fame, she also was doing the best job. Human memory is very cruel, as is watching people on video. You could say, at the time, maybe she thought she was being pressing. Maybe to her, that was at the time. And by the standards of the tech industry, it was quite critical. Still say back the British press was doing better 20 years ago. But if she had the introspection to see what she was instead of lying, because the way she talks about Elon Musk and always being a critic is a lie, that's disgraceful, and that is misleading people. And it's teaching people that you can just get away with that, both the sources and people in society.
I'll give you an example of a journalist doing it well, I think. Sophie Schmidt, Eric Schmidt's daughter, went to North Korea with her father on a privileged trip with the State Department 10 years ago. And oddly, kind of wonderfully ironic, she put it up on Google, and then Google, of course, killed that feature, so it was gone. So somebody at Rest of World, which is a wonderful, amazing site that she started, resurrected the piece. And then she wrote a piece today about all the ways she was wrong. Awesome. I respect that. She showed off something she did 10 years ago, which she was kind of embarrassed about in some ways, because it was kind of naive in the situation. And then she came back and she talked to experts about it and said, here's where I was wrong. That's the kind of model to show. She's rich. She doesn't have to do any of this. I think Rest of the World is spectacular. She could rest on those laurels, but she came out and did that. And that's what Kara Swisher is never going to do.
Why doesn't she do
it's
the
called
tech
What I Missed When I Went to North Korea. 11 years after her Pyongyang trip, Rest of World's founder revisits how she interpreted the company, its people, and their culture.
That's journalism.
And what I wish Kara would do is the tech equivalent of Smartless. If you can get these people, get them on a podcast, chat nonsense for an hour. Let's see what they say. If they're not willing to do it, they're not friends. Or if you're not willing to push them to do it, you're not doing your job. You're not putting on entertainment. If it's just entertainment, show these people for what they are. Because also, I think the other thing is, most of these guys are terrifyingly boring. Kara can be quite interesting. She can be quite electric. I think Scott Galloway's boring, but she's interesting. But the people she talks to are so terrifyingly dull. Sam Altman, Reid Hoffman, even Mark Benioff. Oh, God, the same different versions of everything. It's like ChatGPT given life. They all say the same kind of things. They all mumble themselves. Mark Zuckerberg, what a dullard. Good Lord. Blah, blah, blah. Steve Jobs, by the way, scumbag. I just finished doing the Behind the Bastards series with Robert Evans about him.
Oh, I love that podcast.
Steve Jobs, by the way, one of the worst people to ever walk this earth, a deadbeat dad who had to be sued by the District Attorney of California to pay
Walter
welfare.
Isaacson wrote a fair and balanced biography of
Well,
like
Walter Isaacson has
Musk.
never written an unfair biography ever. No. And speaking of Elon Musk, I want to shift gears a little bit.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going off.
Another. Listen, I'm sure everybody loves hearing about Kara Swisher as much as we love talking about her. But another story in the rundown is Trump. This week, the Washington Post reported that Trump asked Elon Musk if he wanted to buy Truth Social. And unsurprisingly, the idea went nowhere. But it's still kind of interesting that Trump and Elon have kind of continued to communicate more and more. This comes after, I believe, last week where either the Post or the Times reported that Trump had came to Elon Musk to potentially get him to try and invest in his presidential campaign.
Well, so I think that's a different story. My theory on that is because Musk said, "I'm not going to contribute to any candidate." Well, Trump needs something else. He needs a few $100 million bond.
Yeah,
and I think that's what he's going after people for. We don't know where he got the money for the first bond he had to put up. He has a much larger bond he has to put up. That's why I think he went to Elon. However, not being smart enough to realize that Elon probably has very little liquid capital.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Everything's tied up in Tesla stock. Also, why isn't anyone talking more about this Elon Musk Chancery Court thing? Like, if he has to reorganize the board of Tesla, he's screwed. Yeah. His current group of people look kind of like Jim Henson creatures. They're all just like weird cronies of his that have like transparently crooked deals with him. And that's why the Chancery Court judge ruled against him, because they were like, these people like have no control over you. That is the biggest story in tech right now. If Elon Musk loses tens of billions of dollars of stock options, the richest man in tech won't be able to create the world's most anti-woke AI. Also,
that's true.
Why do we
what are we
keep
going to do without
Grok?
Grok being funded by tens of billions of dollars? Where are we going to get our contrarian news from?
I don't know. Many other news outlets that seem to be willing to post right-wing stuff uncritically because they're incapable of, I don't know. I find the whole Twitter thing very depressing as well. I find the whole Elon Musk thing very depressing. But I'm British. That's how we roll.
Let's do the Google changelog.
This will take about 2 seconds.
It often does.
And by the way, I have to confess to you, I put those both in there with irony.
Listen, I assume that's the only way that Google changelog can happen.
Breaking news was my ironic comment on how nothing
new from CNET. New Google Messages feature lets you turn your blue chat bubbles green or orange or purple.
If you're feeling particularly
How exciting. Google is testing the addition of color and background customization for its Google Message app on Android phones. Another way the internet giant hopes to distinguish its RCS messaging services, this time with some pizzazz. Thrilling. Moving on to Jeff's seemingly ironic breaking news. Published 1 day ago, Google's updated sign-in page appears to be rolling out widely.
Hey, how's that for
If you've
news?
tried to sign into a Google product, you may realize that the sign-in page looks a little differently. And I'm sure quite a lot of teams of people got paid quite handsomely to do that. And for that, we salute them.
Where's Marissa Meyer when we need her?
The Google changelog.
She's running a calendar app.
Yes, she is. It was a contacts app. Now she has contacts, too.
It's a contact app.
Huge.
Wow.
We're going to go to an ad break, after which we'll come back with our picks of the week, guys. And we're back. Jeff, what's your pick this week?
Oh, you got to pick on yourself first.
Pick on myself first. All right. My pick this week is I'm the boss, but yet I clearly don't have a strong sense of self because I immediately deferred to you. My pick this week is a new short film out, I guess a normal sized film called The Disruptors. out. Taylor Lorenz did a interview this week with the writer and director of it, Adam Frucci. And the headline of it is, a new satire takes another whack at Silicon Valley and the men who fund it. This is perhaps a little bit of a preemptive pick, but I saw, Jeff, you'd included this story in the rundown, so I kind of had to highlight it as my pick because the people behind this film and the two main actors are both kind of creators that are prominent in the Dropout cinematic universe. Dropout, for people who've been listening for a while, is this indie streaming service and content kind of creation, I guess, studio that I've been a huge fan of. It is by the former College Humor people and is one of my favorite things in media right now. And basically what this movie is about is the plot is that an Uber driver played by this guy, Grant O'Brien, decides to try and scam a venture capitalist into giving him lots of money by making up a fake startup idea. And I love this interview with the director and writer because it is a really interesting look, because basically the Washington Post and Taylor Lorenz ask him why did you, what led you to do this satirical critique on Silicon Valley? And he basically says, venture capitalists are some of the most powerful people on the planet. And basically every job I've had has been ruined in one way or another by venture capitalists or the tech industry, which I think is a really interesting take on it.
I just think it's cute that someone did a movie about creating something that is basically symbolic capital to raise money from venture capitalists, which is otherwise known as venture capital in 2021.
Yep.
Very cute.
Sorry.
Jeff, what do you got?
I'll keep going on the capitalism is evil and private equity and venture capital and hedge funds are ruining the world, including journalism, with two little notes. One is that the Associated Press, which we thought would have standards, has done a deal with the evil Taboola, the company that junks up every damned web page with, and you won't believe, and they're going to do a commerce site with Taboola. Have they no pride? Have they
Taboola, famously is the chum box that you see below articles where it's like, one weird trick gets rid of fat fast.
You won't believe, and then it's something that's just made up.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever clicked those links?
I have done once, and I was just and you just go, no, this isn't real. It's not obvious how they're making money, but you know they are, so you just close the window.
So then the second thing is, speaking of private equity and bad people, the Los Angeles Times investor media, now owned by Patrick Soon-Shiong, ruined by previous owners at Alden. They are closing. So you can play this video without the sound, so we won't get it taken down if you'd like. This is the last press run at the LA Times. Huge, amazing Olympia press hall, and after more than 30 years, it's going on business. Look at the size of these presses, these magnificent.
Where are
machines.
they printing it now, though?
Well, it's going to Alden, which owns now San Diego and Orange County, and so the evil Alden hedge fund will get the printing business and make money off the LA Times.
Very cool.
Wow.
So the last, I loved press. I'm old enough to linotypes and presses. When I worked at the Chicago Tribune and the San Francisco Examiner, at a certain hour, you would feel the floor rumble as the press starts. It was a wonderful, wonderful thing to go down and watch it and smell it. And it's gone. It's going. And I don't regret paper going away. It's like horses went away and so did their crap. It's okay.
Jeff, I have a dumb question for you, but in your first journalism job, were you using computers or typewriters?
Here's how old I am.
Or were you using a stone tablet and chisel?
There was just a tablet and a bird that said, "It's a living."
So this is Uncle Jeff moment here. So I'm old enough that my first typewriters were not electric. When I was at the Chicago Tribune, I was in the job called, I was a rewrite man. Sorry for the sexism of that. And I would sit on rewrite on deadline stories. And there was a prison break in Indiana. Reporters are calling in me with stuff. I'm calling people to get notes. I'm calling up the clips on other prison breaks. And then I would write the story on what we called half books, half a sheet of paper with many carbons. And I would type the first paragraph, the lead of the story. I would rip it out of the typewriter quite dramatically and scream, "Copy!" And somebody 2 years younger than me would come, and copies of the copy would go all around creation, and it would get edited by the city desk, then edited by the copy desk, and then it would get pneumatically tubed down to the composing room where it would be set in lead down there while I'm still writing. So I'm writing the next paragraph and the next paragraph and the next paragraph. And I keep one copy for myself. I've got to find out whether or not, did I make that first reference? Did I say who the DA was? Did I say the first name? And if not, I've got to find a way to write that in because I can't get it back. It's being set in type.
Oh my gosh.
And so on that story, I always remember Ralph Hallenstein. Sorry, you're going to get Uncle Jeff going here with his old days. Was the news
Getting
editor.
lost in your stories.
I am. He was a Mondo smoker. And at the end of the shift, yes, I'm so old. We used to smoke inside. And at the end of the shift, honest to God, the next shift would have a ghoul pool about how many cigarette butts there were in Ralph's ashtray. And Ralph, of course, died from lung cancer. But then in came the first computers in the Tribune newsroom. And I was on the midnight shift waiting for somebody to die a horrible death so I could write about it. And I was the kid who wasn't scared of them. So I played with them. They couldn't do anything yet. And so come the day when they were going to turn them on, I was the only person who wasn't scared of them. I trained the entire newsroom in the first computers. So get this on your head. I had to say, well, this is a cursor. You have to put the cursor where you want to do something. No. Don't hit return at the end of the line. Trust me. Just keep typing. No. Keep typing. It's smart. It'll do it. Right. So I learned computers early on. That's what got me all nerdy. And my final bit of Uncle Jeff moment is that because I wrote so fast in rewrite, it changed immediately the way I wrote. So I would write as fast as I could to get a draft down. And then I spent every minute until deadline editing. And so computers fundamentally changed how I thought and wrote. And that's what fascinates me. There's a book that I absolutely love by a friend of mine named Matthew Kirschenbaum called Track Changes. It is a history of word processing.
Oh, that's fascinating. I'm going to order
wonderful. It is really wonderful. Matthew is a English professor at UMD. And if you're into this stuff about how it kind of it changes the way we look at things. It changes the way we write and we think. And so sorry, Paris, you asked me a simple question of Uncle Jeff, and Uncle Jeff couldn't stop.
Well, now I want to ask a question of Ed. I don't know how old you are, Ed, but was your first job, did you use a computer for it?
Yes, though I didn't really need a job when I was a kid. My parents paid for school, so like I was a games journalist, so I was just writing on computers. But I do remember when I was like 9, walking around my dad's office. My dad was a public housing management consultant of sorts, and so he had a Reuters terminal, one of the old Reuters terminals, and I was fascinated by this thing. And I now know that those things were probably worth like 150, like way too much money.
Crazy money.
But I was just fascinated by this idea that the news would come through during the day. Just as a kid, you were just like, oh, the news exists only on television and on paper. But then the computer has news, and it always had more news.
Yes.
It's remarkable I didn't break that thing.
Yeah.
But I tried. I was messing around with it a great deal, but it's fascinating. That was like probably my most formative computer memory, was messing with that terminal. Because it was just like the idea that information came through in this manner, and that it was good information. It wasn't just like like this was clearly thoughtful, carefully done stuff.
Right.
It's cool.
Well, and also you're on top of something. When I started my first news sites in 1994, my children, just as the browser started, I got the AP wire, and I started this page where it would update with the entire AP wire every minute. Gave us page views, and the public loved it. It was hugely popular because it was the entire AP feed, and you could get whatever you wanted. It was like Dave Weiner says, it was a river of news. No judgment, nothing else. You could just see the latest news. Readers loved it. The AP effing hated it. And they fought and fought and fought and finally killed it.
Wow. I was going to say my first reporting job used Google Docs, Slack,
aren't you
Twitter.
That's fine.
Ed, do you have a pick of the week for us? Something
I
you
do.
like?
Is it okay if it's not like news or anything
Yes,
normal?
it's very
You can do
okay.
whatever
I
you
believe
want.
my pick of the week
Okay.
once was the phrase, consider the humble corn maze. So anything goes.
Okay, so it's about that normal. So in 2003, Metallica released the album Sent Anger. It was pretty much universally panned. They said that the drums weren't right in it. There were no solos. It was classically considered the death of Metallica for quite some time. About 3 weeks ago, a guy called Michael Shea on YouTube, and not enough people have found this yet. Michael Shea on YouTube. He re-recorded and recut the entire album. He used James Hetfield's original vocals, but he re-recorded most of the album. He finessed parts. He added bass lines, rhythm guitar. I talked to him briefly about it because I'm that kind of guy to go and say, like, this is amazing. And he was like, I'm not a great guitarist, but I know what good sounds like. And so he basically took this album that kind of sucked and made it really good. Like, it's a very good album now. Lyrics are still dumber than dog poop. It is still very much a Metallica album, but he added depth to an album that when I was 2003, so quite some time ago, I was in high school at the time. I remember listening to just an abject sadness. And I wish I could go back in time and say, it will get better, Ed. You'll be able to do a job on the computer and Sent Anger will be fixed. But it's so weird because this album has been redone a lot. There are 3 years ago, someone did a one where they re-recorded and they actually re-sang it as well. That one did it wrong because they didn't accept the inherent problem with Sent Anger, which is it needed to be re-recorded. The song ideas were good, but the actual fundament needed to be removed a bit. And this guy, Michael Shea, has done it. It's genuinely a good album now. Invisible Kid, which is one of the worst Metallica songs ever, now actually has some depth to it. It's such a good album. I love it. I've listened to it so many times. I've listened to the original a lot for more mental health reasons, just like it was just something that I damaged myself with. But now this album is actually good.
That's beautiful.
And it's called Saint Banger on
Saint
YouTube.
Banger.
Yeah. Good title, too.
Great pick, a banger of a pick. Well, thank you guys both so much for being here on my Twig takeover. Thank you, Jeff Jarvis. As always,
Paris.
You're always here. And thank you so much, Ed Zitron, for coming
My
and
pleasure.
joining us here in the Leo-less void that exists on the internet. Ed, where can people find you? What do you want to plug?
Okay, so you can find me on Twitter /ratemanyudes.biz at Ed Zitron, EDZITRON. You can find me on Blue Sky, zitron.bsky.social. You can find my newsletter at where'syourEd.at and the podcast Better Offline at betteroffline.com. And you click podcast and it'll have all the links. You don't have to ask me with a Spotify thing. It's all there. Please don't ask me.
He's got great tweets too.
They're some top drawer posts.
A real poster's heart. And I think that's what it's all about.
And that's who I am. Like I grew up on the internet posting. Like this is at my core, and I feel like the posters will rise.
The posters will rise again. And thank you so much, everybody, for listening to this. Thank you, Club TWiT members, for subscribing and making this podcast possible. And thanks, everybody. Good night.
Thank you.